Welcome to the Dairy Raid. Presented with over 20 years of coaching experience, the Dairy Raid provides commentary and analysis of the schemes, the players, and the coaches who create Wisconsin football's new identity. Now here's your host, Ryan Anderson.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dairy Raid. And with fall camp just around the corner, I think it's time that we take a look ahead to the 2024 season. And so what I'm going to be doing with this preview series is to go away from the formula that a lot of the other people in the Badger content space is going, and look at the preview from a different point of view. I'm doing that, one, because, everyone else can do the traditional player-by-player depth chart, camp storylines type previews better than I can. They're more eloquent speakers, they're better writers, they can do all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, I'm a football coach, and so I'm going to look ahead to this season as if I was a coach on the staff, and I'm looking forward to what we need to improve, what we need to change, and then how we can take advantage of those changes to improve the on-the-field product. So that's going to be the approach. And when we're looking at this kind of approach, I'm looking at identifying three key areas of improvement, and then how that can be used to utilize, or that can be utilized going forward. For me, that is fundamental improvements, improving execution, and then bringing it all together and finding a tactical advantage that you can use with that new found improvement. So that's what we're going to be looking forward to. And starting out today, we are going to be looking at the running backs. Running backs is an interesting position to look forward to this season because we are seeing a changing of the guard. Obviously, last 3 years, we've had Braylon Allen as the number one back. Chez Mellusi has been there the entire time, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Now it's his turn to be the feature back, quote unquote, and we'll see how it goes when he takes the reins here. I think starting with this year, we're going to see a fundamental change in how the backfield is utilized, because that's the way modern football is going. The days of the feature back getting a lion's share of the reps is over. One, because it's strategically more advantageous, to use multiple backs to keep players healthy, to use different skill sets, and to optimize your offense. So while Chez is probably going to be the feature or the lead back, I don't think he's going to be a feature back. So looking at the running back room as a whole, as a coach, if I was the running back coach, if I was Devin Spalding and I was coming into fall camp with this group, where would I like to see improvement, and how could I utilize that improvement? If we're looking at it from a fundamentals point of view, last season, and maybe this was more because of the backs who were doing it, I was really disappointed in the pass blocking fundamentals, pass protection fundamentals of the running back room as a whole. I thought Chez was fine early on for a smaller back. He has good feet. He did a better job sitting lower in his protection. But what we saw a lot, especially with with Braylon, and we saw with Yakimelli and with Acre, when they kind of had to take over, was very top-heavy pass protection technique. A lot of lunging, a lot of hands over hip or over feet beyond the reach of our stance. And that is an area that they need to improve from a fundamentals point of view. Sitting lower, punching out, okay, keeping their weight over their hips instead of over extending beyond their feet. That way you can absorb contact and deflect contact, which is what this group needs to do better if we're going to utilize the running back as a pass protector. And that's important, obviously, because as we saw, we couldn't really utilize the running backs to the full extent in the offense as pass catchers, which is going to lead into the next kind of area I want to talk about with execution. Is I'd like to see our running backs execute what I like to call the square, scrape, and burst technique when it comes to getting the ball in open space. Because it's not all about just trying to run around the corner and getting outside of everybody. You want to get that ball in space. You want to be able to accelerate towards the outside shoulder of that defender. You want to be able to square him up, put your foot in the ground, scrape inside of him, and then burst to the second level. I think what we saw a lot of last year when it comes to this execution is a lot of running of the feet when we get to that scrape and square position, where we would get there, we plant the outside foot, and then the inside foot will come, and there would be a little bit of a stutter sitting there. We saw this a lot with Katie Akamelli and Jackson Aker. Obviously, they were the 3 and 4 back in the system last year. Maybe we was expecting a little bit too much for them to execute at a higher level. We saw it with Braylon, came with injuries. With Ches, we saw the tendency more to bounce it outside. So I'd really like to see him, especially because we know the speed that he's got, to really drive to the outside, plant that outside foot, and then cut and get vertical more often. More lateral movement in the outside zone game, more lateral movement in the inside game, and then be able to bounce it back. I think that's going to add a different dynamic to the offense, especially when we start getting our backs out, and especially now that we have had such an emphasis in the short passing game up until now. And with better movement outside of the box, we're going to get into how we can use that tactically, is utilizing the running backs better in the passing game. Last year, our route tree with the running backs was very limited. And we saw flats, we saw bubbles, and that was pretty much it. We saw screens early on with Ches. That kind of went away, partially because of the offensive line, and we'll talk about that when we get into their preview later. Saw an angle route here and there, but what I would really like to see them is take advantage of the running backs going all directions in the passing game. So getting out to that key point where almost all of our upfield routes for running back hit that space just beyond the tackle, be able to square up the line of scrimmage, and then be able to go out, go up the seam, or cut back in over the middle on an angle route from that same position. So I want to see that same look that we gave a lot last year, but be able to take advantage of that of different angles. I think having backs like Ches and Tawee Walker, who are both comfortable in the passing game. Tawee Walker's coming from experience in the air raid system, the air raid system as a running back. He could be better utilized in that, and adding the running back more effectively into the passing game is going to help not only the intermediate but the long passing game, because it is going to help us get a better three-layered effect when it comes to setting up our routes. All right, so looking back on this again, from a fundamental standpoint, I want to see better fundamentals when it comes to the pass protection. From an execution standpoint, I want to see us be able to square up better and to scrape and to accelerate with a one-cut kind of movement in the open field especially, and coming off of the outside zone. And tactically, I want to see more diversity in the passing game from the running back group. I want to see them better utilized to help create that three-layered effect in the passing game. With all that combined, with the room that we have, I think it's going to be a great year for the running backs, because to me it's going to hopefully be truly a running back room and not a running back man, where the entire offense in the past seems to run through that one guy. And if that one guy is not at 100%, the running backs are not at 100%, because we don't have anything built in for the rest of the room. I think Phil Longo's offense works best when he has multiple backs, that he can share the load, diversify the load, and build more of a by committee type room. So we're going to see how that looks going forward, and it's going to be an interesting year. And we haven't even talked about the freshmen yet, and we'll get into that later. I want to hear about the actual freshmen showing up and doing something and finding their way on the field before I start saying I think the freshmen are going to make an impact. But what we talked about here today is for everybody, not just the returning guys, but the freshmen. The room as a whole, we're previewing today. All right? So that's it for today on the running backs. Next time when we come back out, we're going to talk about the tight ends. So until then, thank you for watching, and we will see you next time. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dairy Raid, and today's part 2 of our preview of the 2024 season, and we're going to be taking a look at the tight end room. And just like we talked about with the running backs and for the preview series in general, we're going to look at the tight ends as if I was Nate Letton and I was in the room. How would I be previewing my group and finding where that they need to improve for us to perform at our peak efficiency once we get into the season. So if you're looking for discussion on depth chart, storylines, everything like that, you know who to look for. It certainly ain't me. I'm a football coach, and coaches look at this stuff from a more whole picture kind of deal, because it's less about the individual. It's more about the kind of the overall view of how we see a room that we built our group. So speaking from a fundamental point of view, I thought something that we really struggled with last year was just overall athleticism in the running back, in the tight end room. Outside of Tucker Ashcraft, who was a freshman, I think you saw a room that was built to be extra tackles, as they were in the past with Wisconsin. So in order to improve fundamentally as a group, the tight ends need to become more athletic. I think they've done so, one, with the addition of Jax McGowan and Grant Stack, Rob Booker. The guys coming in, and I wasn't going to talk necessarily about individuals, but one easy way that you improve athleticism is you subtract one glorified tackle and you add some athletes. So when it comes to fundamentals, when I'm thinking about athleticism, I want to see quicker feet, bursting better out of routes. Okay, I think we need to see more what we call step climbing in our routes, where we attack instead of straight laterally, straight out to the sideline. We're working. We get to our break point. We break downhill and to our target angle. What that does is it creates leverage just by the movement. Okay, you're basically forcing the defender to take an extra step behind you, and you're creating space downhill away from that defender. That's going to create space. And hopefully if we get better timing with the quarterbacks, that is going to lead to less situations where we feel like we didn't gain leverage. So from a fundamental point of view, getting better at the top of the route to create space is going to be a huge improvement that we need to see that group make. When it comes to execution, there's still tight ends. There's still big bodies. So we've got to get better at winning routes and using size and strength to win routes. We saw that running mesh routes and sitting down last year, where we get to the top of the route and a lot of our tight ends just didn't seem comfortable kind of sitting there and trying to create space for the ball. So we need to see the tight ends act a little bit more like power forwards and box out those linebackers and safeties and whoever are covering us, and bodying those defenders to at least give the air that we can win one-on-one battles. More confidence in those situations. So if we have more confidence, you're going to see Tyler Van Dyke throw more balls into the tight ends in those kind of situations. And this is all going to lead to, from a tactical situation, we have got to use the tight ends more vertically. And we saw last year, we saw a lot of mesh routes, we saw a lot of curl routes, and we saw crossers, but we didn't see much straight vertical shots from the tight ends. Now, I'm not saying that our down the field passing game has to come through the tight ends. Quite the opposite. A vertical game for the tight end is hitting that area in the 7 to 12 yard to 15 yard range off the quick top of the drop kind of footwork from the quarterback. But if we have better athleticism and we can carry defenders more fluidly downfield, that again is going to expand the passing game, in that it is going to force that upper half of the pass defense to cover more space. If we have tight ends who cannot press the defense vertically quickly enough and efficiently enough, then defenses can play with less players over the top. Basically, last year we saw majority cover one. And what that's going to do is just going to allow defenses to out-athlete us. We can't have that. We have to have tight ends who can push downfield and push the cap of the defense to force them to put other defenders on top of that. Getting defenses to play more cover 3 instead of cover 1, cover 4 instead of cover 2. And that is going to help the intermediate passing game, and it's going to help the short passing game. And again, create that 3-layered effect that makes the air raid offense that much more efficient. So from a fundamentals point of view, our tight ends have to become better athletes and show better athleticism, quickness out of their breaks, burst off the line of scrimmage, aggressiveness out of the stance. Using that newfound athleticism, I want to see our tight ends get more physical at the top of their routes, creating space through movement, but also strength, and be able to be that security in the intermediate game that allows us to get rid of the ball a little bit quicker in that portion of the passing game. And then using our ability to get downfield and our athleticism to create space up the seams to force defenses to play top down instead of in our face and just running with our players. I think we have the players in the room this year that can do it. McGowan obviously brings athleticism. Rob Booker to me is like a big receiver. Same with McGowan. Tucker Ashcraft did really well for a true freshman last year, and I think his game is going to expand. Riley Nowakowski is a fullback, and I think we're going to see his role fit that more and being more like a fullback out on the wing, an H-back type. And we've got the young guys, Grant Steck, in there as well. He's that combination of the traditional Wisconsin size with ball skills and route running that are rare for a young guy. So it'll be interesting to see a younger, bigger, maybe faster Tucker Ashcraft in the room as well. So there's a little bit of depth chart talk for you. But like I said before, coaches are all about, okay, these are the guys I got. This is how we want to improve. This is how I want to utilize them. Don't just give me some guys. Give me my group, and I'll tell you how I can utilize them. I hope you all could hear that. Gotta love my neighbors. Anyways, coaches are less about who's in the room than this is what I've got. This is how that needs to get better so I can do what I want to do. All right, so before my neighbors start running up and down the street again, I think we're going to cut this one here. So thank you for watching. Next time up, we are going to take a look at the wide receiver room and how that room can improve from a coach's point of view to take us to the next level. So until then, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dairy Raid and on to part 3 of our fall preview. And we're looking at the Badgers from a coach's point of view. So we ain't talking about so much about depth chart and position battles or anything like that. We're going to talk about the room as a whole, how the room can improve, and how we can then better utilize the room once we have a stronger room to utilize. And again, we're going to be looking at the receivers, where they can improve fundamentally, where they can take those fundamentals and improve their execution, and then how we're going to take that improved fundamentals and execution and be able to deploy the new skills tactically and effectively. All right, so starting off fundamentally wise, we were horrible at getting off the line of scrimmage last year. And I don't know if this is a Mike Brown problem or a problem that was inherited from the past, maybe underdevelopment with the receivers going into last year. But there was just this out of sync issue with the receiver room. And it started with their inability to get off the line of scrimmage. And so what I want to see from a fundamental point of view is less dancing and more bursting. I think we got in a lot of situations where our receivers last year maybe thought they were quicker than they actually were. Or maybe they overthought what they were doing because they had so much to think about when they got to the top of the route that they never quite got going. And when you have receivers who can't get off the line of scrimmage, that completely screws up timing with the quarterbacks and any semblance of a passing game going forward. So we really need to improve the fundamentals when it comes off of breaking releases and just getting vertical, restacking those defenders, and getting into our routes. Everything in this offense is based on timing. And if the receivers can't get in time with themselves, they're never going to get in time with the quarterbacks. And if we can get off the line of scrimmage, we can do a better job at executing at the top of the route. You know, a lot of times we get there and it seems like our receivers last year had problems feeling space and leverage and finding where they should be sitting down in their routes, where they should be breaking, how they should create space on their defender. And we would just see this where they wouldn't break away from defenders when they're coming downhill on curls, on comebacks. They would just kind of turn and sit there and then be surprised that the ball wasn't thrown to them with the defender right behind them. We saw poor angles on dig routes. We didn't see that step climb that we talked about with the tight ends where they would get to the top of the route, break downhill, and create space away as they're moving laterally out of their break. So better, more concise, more, again, simplify the top of the routes. If we get that, I think we're going to create better space. And again, we've been talking about the entire time, building up in the passing game is we need to create a better 3-layer effect with the passing game. And that also means laterally. So we get the horizontal, we get the vertical stress, but we also have to get the horizontal stress created by the leverage that we gain from the route. So better at the top of the route. And when you combine being faster and quicker off the line of scrimmage and being more decisive and more concise of where they're going at the top of the route, you're going to have a better route altogether. Better routes means when the quarterback gets to the top of his footwork, the only question a quarterback in the air raid offense should be asking is when they get to where they are in their drop, foot in the ground, is the receiver open? That is the question. It is not, what's the angle of the defender? Where is he at? How close is he? No. We don't read defenders in the air raid offense. We read open space. So the question is, when the receiver gets to the top of his route, is he open? Yes or no? It's no yes but. No but. It needs to be concise, and they can help with that. If we're able to do that, that's going to force defenses into zone coverage, because now you are forcing the defense to have to cover more space. Last year, defenses were able to play man-to-man because we couldn't create enough stress both vertically and horizontally that we made the defenders have to even think about covering the entire field. And when we do that, we can't win. So we become better route runners. We have a better awareness at the top of our routes. We're going to force defenses to play in better space. By doing so, we're going to improve. Ways that we can fudge that tactically is we can run more routes from compressed formations. Like we saw that last year where we would run some compressed formations and run a lot of our base type plays where we have our curl, we have our wheel route, we have our flat route together. But we had issues finding space in those compressed routes. So if we get better at our route running, compressed formations force defenses to play zone coverage. Movement from the receivers can force defenses to play zone coverage. When we force defenses to play zone coverage, we can manipulate the receiver or the defenders via routes. By manipulating the defense, we can set up and we can dictate where the ball goes. Up until, a lot of times last year, it was dictated like, all right, where's the one guy that we can get out? All right, Will Pauling's about the one guy who can beat his man-to-man coverage. We have to get the ball to him because he's the only one who can do it. This year's group has got to do a better job of that, and we're either going to have to do that by running better routes or utilizing our players in different ways through compressed formations and through motion. All right, so from a coach's point of view, I think the receiver room can get stronger, can get better without having to wholesale refresh the roster and add a whole bunch of new guys. We've added 2 new guys this offseason with Terrell Henry and with Joseph Griffin. They're going to help because they add depth. Joseph Griffin adds a different body type that we don't have. But the guys coming back are going to be the core of that group. Bryson Green, C.J. Williams, Vinny Anthony, Quincy Burrows, Will Pauling, and Tretch Kahuna. That group that we had last year has got to be a year stronger, a year faster, a year more fundamentally sound, and a year more hungry. And if we can get that out of our receiver group, we can start to see the potential that we saw in them last year and take a step forward. And that's what all the coaches are looking for, is we have a starting point with our group. We identify the problems that they have. We develop a plan to improve those issues. And then we use our newfound skills to create a tactical advantage and help our team win. That's all we're trying to do. All right. So that's the receivers. Again, a quick look forward to the season. We'll know more once we start getting into fall camp what direction we're going. But if I was in the room right now, if I was Kenny Guyton, this would be where I'd start from a fundamental, an execution, and a tactical form to build my room and improve it for the 2024 season. All right? So that is the receivers. Next time, we're going to be talking about the offensive line. Really excited to talk about this group because if there's anybody who can improve this room from fundamentals, from a coach's point of view, it's a good teacher like A.J. Blazek. So we'll get into that next time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you then. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dairy Raid, and today we are talking about the offensive line and previewing the 2024 season. Again, we're looking at the offensive line from a coach's point of view. We're A.J. Blazek. We're seeing our group for the first time. We're identifying where they need to improve from a fundamental point of view, skills that we need to add, skills that we need to change. We're going to look at the group from where we can execute better from last season within the system. And then we're going to talk about how we can use that newfound fundamental improvement and skill development in a more tactical way and improve our production on the field, that direction. So, getting into this group, I'm very excited about the offensive line because I have been spending a lot of time over these last couple months watching A.J. Blazek talk about offensive line. And if you have any desire in coaching, go on YouTube and just search AJ and look at all the myriad of information that he's put out there. He seems like a very open coach, very open to work with in clinics and stuff like that. And you hear a lot about his philosophy when it comes to offensive line coaching. And it's exciting. Dude loves to talk about offensive line play. He's the type of coach where I can tell his voice is gone at the end of every practice because he coaches at 1,000 miles an hour. And I love that. That's what this room needs. We hear, last year that Jack Bicknell Jr. was a player's coach where maybe he was more of the offensive line dad. A.J. Blazek is going to be that offensive line crazy uncle. And he's going to push that group. And they're going to hate him and love him equally. And I can't wait. So when we get into looking at our offensive linemen from a fundamental point of view, this room has got to get better in the passing game and pass protection at getting their hands on defenders early. I think we saw a lot last year. Jack Nelson was victimized with this a lot. Michael Furtney was, the whole offensive line pretty much was, at when they got into pass protection, it was a lot of wait and see. You know, they get out of their stance, they get set, they get moving, but there just seemed to be so much time from their get off to the point of first contact that unless they locked out and got in position perfectly right away, they were going to get lost. We saw that a lot with Jack Nelson. So what I would want to get out of this, and again, with the passing game, how it is, we're not doing 7-step drops. We're not doing complicated, deep passing schemes that means that we need to keep that pocket open for 2.5 seconds. I want to see our offensive linemen get out of their stance, work more laterally, get their hands on those pass rushers early to let the pass rushers dictate where the protection needs to be set. And instead of sitting back and letting that defender work off of our weakness, I want to get my hands on him and work to my strength. And I think obviously our strength is our power in our offensive line. Agility is not one of them. So we need to work on getting our hands on those defenders quickly, being able to redirect and move better. This is going to allow us to get more creative when it comes to pass protection. We saw a little bit last year where they would play action and be able to pull out Tanner Bortolini and works a little bit of semi-roll stuff. I'd like to see more movement in pass protection. To allow movement, though, we need to be able to almost essentially build like a run scheme when it comes to picking up the rest of our defenders. So we need to have that quick lateral movement, quick hands, so that sets up the ability to move uncovered linemen and rotate and move the pocket. So overall, improving our pass protection skills is going to allow for a more diverse arsenal when it comes to pass protection schemes. And we're just building and building upon all this movement, and it's going to allow us to get better at screens. The screen game is so important to the air raid offense because it really extends the amount of space the first and second level defenders have to cover in terms of pass coverage, that it brings so much more emphasis to the first level of the passing game. We've been building up this whole time about a 3-layered effect. You know, utilizing the running backs more effectively in the passing game is going to help with the lower level. But getting better at the screen game and not just throwing bubble screens, not just throwing quick screens. I mean, we're working the power scheme into a jailbreak, a slot screen, whatever, getting those big linemen upfield and letting them get hands-on quickly and effectively. We ran it a few times last year. Moderate success. There's a couple great schemed up screens that we ran last year where we would fake power one direction and then bring out backside linemen to set up a wall in a screen game. So we showed that we are capable of doing it last year. Let's hope, being a year faster, a year more agile, a year smarter on top of being a year stronger, can improve that group and allow us to be more aggressive on the first level of the defense and bringing the offensive lineman to the defense instead of the other way around. All right. This is going to be a year that the offensive line has got to return to the forefront of the Wisconsin offense. It's a veteran group. We're returning essentially 5 starters or 4 starters from last year. And there's a lot of experience, multiple year starters, all conference type players. We have some young talent who have been patiently waiting in the likes of Joe Brunner, JP Benchwall, to get into that rotation. And then we got the young guys coming up that, again, there's a reason why we've dedicated 10 bodies in the last two recruiting classes to offensive linemen. We're going to see some of these young guys who have been brought up in modern football and have been training since they were younger in the ways of modern football, the combination of power and agility, the combination of speed and aggression. And that is going to take the dynamics of our offensive line group to another level when guys like Kevin Haywood, Emerson Mandel, and the rest get into the rotation. And I think they will early, especially now that we hear that Leighton Nelson, unfortunately, is going to be out for the season, most likely. Our depth is kind of back down to where it was pre-spring. So that's going to be a lot of young guys, which, when we're talking about stuff we're doing here, easy thing to do with young guys is just give them a spot, tell them to run, go get it. And I think our offensive line group can do it. It's just going to take a leader, a coach in that room that can get his guys really excited about the details of offensive line play, and I think A.J. Blazek is that type of guy. So from a coach's point of view, I think our offensive line is in good hands this coming season. All right, so that's the offensive line. Next time, we're going to wrap up our position outlook preview with, we're going to look at the quarterbacks and how the quarterbacks can improve. The room is different, but the ideas behind the offense are the same, and the room needs to grow if the offense is going to take a step forward in the 2024 season. So that'll be next time. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Dairy Ed, and finally, we're on to the quarterbacks in previewing the 2024 season. So here we are. We're Phil Longo. We're walking in cold to a quarterback room that we don't know. All we have is film and our wits, and we are going to improve the Wisconsin quarterback room to make our team better for the 2024 season. Again, the approach that we're going to take in previewing and then looking to improve this group is through fundamentals, through execution, and bringing it all together and finding a tactical advantage with our new skills. So, starting here, the biggest fundamental change that I want to see, and this is something that Phil Longo is going to have to depart with a little bit from part of his philosophy. First thing, Phil Longo has very unique footwork that he likes to train his quarterbacks in. And that footwork is, instead of taking the traditional steps where we move perpendicular to the line of scrimmage, we turn, we shuffle back, or we step back. Phil Longo does the old school way where it's a straight drop back. It's almost like a back pedal into their routes. For me, and what I love about it, and what drew me to Phil Longo as a coach early on, and why I've implemented this footwork for a couple of years now, is the vision that it gives. It allows you to see the entire field. It allows you to have better ability to see to your backside. That's, from a fundamental point of view, it's so simple yet so effective. Where Phil Longo needs to improve with his own footwork is he gives his quarterbacks the freedom to adjust their footwork based on their own tempo. So Phil Longo has three different types of drops. He has what he calls his top gun drop, which is a quick one-step, get rid of the ball drop. He has a quick 3-step drop, where it's a 3-step drop, quicker. And then he has what he calls a casual 3-step drop. Casual 3-step drop is more timing-wise in tune with like a 5-step drop. Longer, lets those deeper routes develop. Where Phil Longo is unique is he allows his quarterbacks to kind of, if he'd rather take a casual drop in this situation, he can. If he'd rather use the 1-step top gun drop, he can. As long as that his footwork gets in time with the receivers, Coach Longo is quite open. Where I'd like to see him depart from this, though, and this is the departure we saw last year. Last year, we didn't see much of the Longo drop back footwork. I want to see it. Why? Because his offense is in tune to that drop back style. And saw this a lot with Tanner last year, where he would drop back and he'd be using the shuffle lateral foot, or the shuffle perpendicular footwork that a lot of quarterbacks use, and he would either be too quick or too slow to the top of his drop, and that completely changed the timing. So what I'm hoping, even though, again, we're bringing another 6th-year quarterback, I'm hoping that Tyler Van Dyke is more open to learning the way that Phil Longo does things and getting in tune from a fundamental point of view with how this offense works, and that will only bring things tighter. Same thing with Braden Locke. Braden Locke is young enough where he still could potentially have 2 years as a starter after this year. It's better to learn the correct footwork now and utilize it now so you can be as successful as the other quarterbacks who have utilized this footwork and gotten to the professional levels. And so from a fundamental point of view, I think Phil Longo needs to be a little bit more stern and say, nope, this is my footwork. We need to run it. Don't give it a why. We don't talk about whys in the air raid offense. It's just, we do it because it's better. Boom, done. When we get better timing and better utilization of footwork that is built into the offense, that is going to enhance decision making, because it is going to make the top of the route decisions much more clear. Because again, in a true air raid sense, a quarterback is not reading defenses. He's reading open space. Get to the top of the drop. Is the receiver open? Yes or no. It is a binary decision. And if the footwork is off, that can change the answer to the question at the top of the route before it even gets there. So, by executing better fundamental footwork, that is going to enhance decision making and make it more decisive. Because, for example, Tyler Van Dyke is a down the field, in the pocket type of quarterback. Tanner Mordecai last year was a improviser, mover, runner, at least more than he was in the past. And we saw how much he took off last year, and we as fans were excited that he was able to extend plays. But how many of his plays did he actually need to extend to get there? So better footwork is going to lead, I hope, lead to more decisive decisions in the passing game. And then from a tactical point of view, I think we need to take advantage now of having quarterbacks who are athletic enough. And if you watch the film, and you can go ahead and watch my preview of Tyler Van Dyke, I might even put a little card up here and let you go see it. He moves fine, above average. And you look at his numbers that he's been testing at with Brady Collins. He's pretty quick for his size. But we don't need him to want to think that he has to win with his feet. He needs to win with his arm. Braden Locke needs to win with his arm. So taking away the quarterback run component of the running game, we need to replace it so we can force defenders to cover the entire field in the running game as much as they do the passing game. So how are we going to do that? We need to expand, better utilize, and be more comfortable with the RPO game in this upcoming season. We ran a lot of RPOs last year, and Tanner didn't pull the trigger. We saw, especially when Tyler Van Dyke was under Josh Gaddis, he was very comfortable, and they utilized, especially up the seams a lot, the RPO game at Miami. And as we're talking about it, we're building this whole series, we're building upon each other. We're getting guys like the tight ends and the slot receivers up the vertical press or up the vertical seam in the passing game. And that is going to open opportunities in the run game. By doing that, you open up a defender to be exploited in the RPO game. So less emphasis on the quarterback run aspect and more emphasis on the run pass option, the access throw, the package play. That is going to help take our offense to the next level, because you're going to put yourself in a situation where the defense at all times needs to be aware of the entire field. And defenses can't be right all the time. You're going to put defenses in conflicts of assignment. Conflicts of assignment mean that no matter what a defense does, they're wrong. From a fundamental standpoint, they can be 100% right and still fail. And we build the entire offense based on that. And as a quarterback room, if we improve, we can take better advantage of that. So that is the quarterback room. Very excited about the group. I think Tyler Van Dyke has a lot to prove, that he's still the quarterback he was as a freshman, and how maybe changing a quarterback coach every year, or offense coordinator every year, and having a terrible offensive line can really affect your play. And what I find so funny is the off years that Tyler Van Dyke had between his freshman year and now. If he had that happen at Wisconsin, he'd be, that's a pretty decent year. Look at his numbers, and then compare them to the likes of Alex Hornibrook and Joel Stave and Jack Cohn and Graham Mertz. Not much of a difference. So it's going to be a great year for the quarterbacks. There's a lot of room to improve, and when you have a lot of room to improve, you got a lot of room to get better, and you have a lot of room to surprise people and build upon that. All right, so next time, and we're going to wrap up our fall preview, is we're going to look at how I would evolve the offense, or how I think the offense is going to evolve in year 2 under Phil Longo. And the approach that I'm going to take in this evolution is actually taking a look at how Luke Fickell evolved his defense at Cincinnati, and using the approach that he built to change the defense from year to year, and applying that to the offense. Because, yes, Luke Fickell is the head coach. He is more defensive minded, but he's the head coach. And he is going to implement his plan when it comes to improvement. And I think using that style can really help us grow at a sustainable rate, which is what we want to do. We don't want to make wholesale changes from year 1 to year 2. All right, so that'll be next time. We'll wrap up the fall preview season, and we'll get ready to get going and actually start watching some film. So that'll be next time. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening to The Dairy Raid. For more content, be sure to subscribe to The Dairy Raid on YouTube. If the written word is more your thing, find Coach Anderson's work on Substack and as a contributor to BadgerNotes.com.